He makes an article, he says, it's just over for Marathon. This is Marathon right now, guys. This is it. When Paul Tassi is saying you're done, it's really done.
It has been a rough month for Bungie. They are struggling right now.
So, do we think that Marathon's going to be delayed? It needs a delay? That's the other thing, though, man. This delaying it, will delaying it change much?
Oh, Bungie. Oh, Bungie. My cherished Bungie. A studio that ranks strong with prestige off of the phenomenal run it had with the Halo series well over a decade ago. Bungie has finally fallen from the heavens it was waiting in. Their soon-to-launch extraction shooter Marathon had the distinction of rebooting an old Bungie license and cult classic that predates even Halo. But it's evident that Bungie's corporate culture and habit of cutting corners has finally prompted them to perform a grievous artistic sin. The sin of greed, of plagiarism. The worst part about it, this isn't the first time this has happened. And when we pull the curtain back, it becomes abundantly clear just how screwed Bungie really is now. So how did it get to this point? And how bad is the plagiarism per se? Bungie had a track record of writing incredibly detailed and exciting worlds, as exhibited by Oni, the Marathon series, and the Halo series. So it's not like they didn't have talented people or the ability to produce original content. Many of the original Bungie Halo guys have moved on since then, but there's still some old guard around. The answer might feel a lot more cynical, but it's an answer embodied in a cynical story. A story about the ever-growing tendrils of corporate greed in the gaming industry, and how even the most prestigious and highly revered companies can give into it. This is the tragic downfall of Bungie and Marathon. It's hard for me to talk about Bungie's fall from grace. I don't take pleasure in it, I don't see it as low-hanging fruit, but there is also a sense of catharsis here. For all the drama and problems Bungie's tenure with Destiny brought, the Final Shape's phenomenal cinematic storytelling gave something for people still holding out for Bungie's reputation. But Destiny still had a lot of problems over its long run. To me, and anybody else who grew up with Bungie games, this video will feel like closure. It'll feel like having permission to finally move on from a toxic relationship. Now, Marathon predates not just Halo, but most games in general. Its original run consisted of 3 different games released between 1994 and 1996, Marathon, Marathon 2, and Marathon Infinity. Marathon's parallels with Halo become impossible to ignore if you look at it long enough. Both games depict a green Roboman with a wide assortment of space-age firearms, duking it out with evil aliens. Said aliens are more than simple green guys from Mars. They have a fanatical devotion to their political or religious convictions and see humans as disposable vermin standing in the way of whatever cause they seek. Said aliens are technologically advanced beyond what any humans can come up with, dastardly smart, and as a result somewhat terrifying given the right conditions. For some, Marathon was the sign of a pivotal moment for the company, a chance for them to go back to roots that were quite literally 3 decades old, and unearth a piece of gaming history for a brand new worldwide audience. Despite what people criticized about the fact that Marathon had been rebooted as an extraction shooter, despite what people criticized about its gameplay and its hero-based nature, despite its lack of focus on Marathon's world building with notably absent elements such as its evil Alien 4 race, or kind of, maybe, it sort of depended on what Bungie wanted to reveal in trailers and things like that. One thing that people praised above all of these things was Marathon's art and its cinematic appeal. Okay, yeah, a lot of people were mad that the art style had changed considerably from what was offered in the 90s. What Marathon originally embodied in the art of Craig Mullins a few decades ago was something a lot more grotesque and gritty, something evoking Ridley Scott's Alien. This new-gen Marathon was bright and intense, but maybe not bright in an inviting way. It was graphically simple, yeah, with sharp lines creating simple shapes, but they cast hard shadows amid neon colors. Colors so neon and so vivid they almost seemed chemical, maybe poisonous, robotic, all at once. It was alien, it was weird, and it worked. It made for a compelling short film. In this iteration of the Marathon license, humans have colonized the distant reaches of space. All seems to be going well for a group of distant space farmers until something Cronenberg's them. These space farmers carried a considerable investment, and so many spacefaring companies were a little upset to find said investment to have seemingly disappeared off of the face of the galaxy. An entire distant colony is ripe for the picking with things to loot. So these mercenaries uploaded their souls into artificially constructed bodies called shells to do just that. And they live, shoot, and die on the ravaged colony planet of Tau Ceti 4 over and over again. That is the basic premise of Marathon, and the justification for it being an extraction shooter. The short film I mentioned even went out of its way to depict some of our cast engaged in the simple act of picking up doohickeys on a shelf and putting them in a backpack. This short film was visually striking and promised a lot. It's set to the famous poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley, Ozymandias. The abandoned colossal wrecks our characters traverse are rife with material things necessary for the job, but one merc makes time to steal a personal music player and takes time to listen to a somber piano song. As the mercs banter with one another in between gunfights, one asks the other, "Do you ever wonder what happened to these people?" To which he responds, "It's not my business." The mercs go right back to a firefight and are inevitably all killed in the ensuing chaos. And presumably they go right back to doing the same thing over and over again, losing a sense of themselves in the process. It's proactive storytelling, and in my opinion, it's a sound, earnest attempt to contextualize an extraction shooter lore-wise, even if the genre invites criticism of being bland and kind of trend-chasey. The problem is that the gameplay trailer released alongside this short film didn't really match its intensity. Rather than a quick, gruesome, Tarkov-like time to kill implied in the cinematic, the game was quickly revealed to be something like Apex Legends without any movement tech. We're still 5 months out from launch at the time of writing this video, and some were still holding out for a more casual riff on the extraction shooter formula. A lot of people really did appreciate the art style, even if not everybody did. There's just one problem. This is not Marathon's artwork. This is the work of Anti-Real, a digital artist with a portfolio going as far back as 2017, with many different pieces evoking this style of graphical realism, as it's called. Joseph Cross, the art director of Marathon, referred to a number of influences for the game's style, from Mirror's Edge to Formula 1, and maybe a little bit of Ghost in the Shell in between. And it's a stunning look, but it's also not entirely Bungie's, or is it? If we go back about 10 years or so, Joseph Cross himself also designed some shells of his own. So, Bungie didn't steal an entire artist's design language, but they did steal a lot of stuff. For a wide variety of textures, Anti-Real's work was incorporated into environmental designs, promotional material, a wide range of things. It seems like whoever stole the work thought that most people wouldn't even notice and just write them off as little graphics. Oh, it's just a logo. Nobody's going to notice this. But somebody did notice it. In one instance, Anti-Real included a "is this loss" gag in a piece of art that ended up going in the actual game itself, plastered right onto a texture and capable of being seen in the game world during the closed alpha test. How much exactly of Anti-Real's work ended up being stolen remains to be seen, but some believe Bungie copied her entire portfolio's design language and thematic elements. And regardless of whether that's true or not, the PR damage has been done. Her usage of bright chemical colors, her juxtapositioning with corporate graphics and glitched or distorted techie artifacts, it's just one of those eye test cases that somebody could assume, even if they were wrong. And one can certainly prove, and there is evidence from Anti-Real herself, that some graphics were stolen. But it's a separate argument entirely, and a bit of a judgment call to say if her overall vision was stolen too. Occam's Razor would say that staffers at Bungie thought Anti-Real's work was a good thematic fit for Marathon and stole some graphics. But that doesn't make it any less bleak. And it doesn't make it any better of a look for Joseph Cross, who's been following Anti-Real for a long time. Bungie hosted a live stream the next day after the news of this broke out, and it looked like they'd just seen ghosts.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions from chat, so I want to jump in. A lot of art questions. I have a question from WigXU. I have a question, a genuine one. Instead of scrubbing so many assets, would it not make more sense to employ the artist, who obviously has nailed the aesthetics you're looking for, and keep the assets as they are?
Great question. That's a great question.
Sorry, Joe
And
Cross.
I can jump in with the answer unless you want to take it, Cross.
I know Cross.
That's a great question.
You got kicked out of the Discord for some reason. Like, I'm starting on his machine, so that we might have a technical issue right now. Do you want to? They're basically asking, wouldn't it be easier just to hire someone to remake the assets, as opposed to? Sorry, do you want to repeat the question? Apologies.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you repeat it? Just so I can relay it to Cross, because
Instead of-
Cross can't hear you right now. But
Instead of scrubbing so many assets, would it not make more sense to employ the artist, who obviously has nailed the aesthetic?
The question was, instead of scrubbing all the assets, wouldn't it be easier to employ the artist who made all the assets?
Yeah, I mean, and for what it's worth.
Now, there's a running gag playing on a narrative slogan for the game that's been a big part of the marketing material. Escape will make me God. But in this case, a lot of people watching the stream invoked plagiarism will make me God. If you weren't already disappointed enough, I want to add, this isn't the first time plagiarism has made Bungie God. It happened a couple of times prior with Destiny. In 2021, a trailer they dropped for the Witch Queen used a fan's art of a prominent villain. And just last year, Destiny 2 dropped a Nerf gun collaboration depicting Cade 6 Ace of Spades revolver, only for them to quickly be caught tracing entire portions of a previous artist's commission from 2015, going so far as to copy, paste, and recolor strokes and smudges from the original work. Essentially, Bungie has a proven track record of 3 strikes you're out for stealing art from Twitter, and it looks like nothing has been done to keep them from doing it. A fan trailer and a collaborative project are two things, but to greenlight, produce, and ship a whole new game with stolen assets in the game world after repeated instances of this sort of thing happening shows a complete and total lack of regard. At that point, many people would rightfully assume that such a thing is not an accident and is instead company policy. And the only thing Bungie regrets at that point is getting caught. Does Bungie regret anything now? Well, I guess it's hard to say. By the time Bungie finally got around to releasing the final shape, Destiny was clearly in its twilight, and most assumed that this was going to be the effective end for really substantial content. It only made sense, since the saga had been building up for many years, in a slow drip reveal reminiscent of the Avengers movies. And just like sharply after Avengers Endgame, subsequent installments for Destiny 2 since the final shape and the defeat of the Witness have been met with mixed reception. But nothing has probably been more controversial so far than the Destiny 2 Renegades, thing. Yep, you're looking at this right. If you want to know the truth, I wasn't really sure what I was looking at either. This is commonly described as an expansion that is still at its core true to Destiny, but not a Star Wars expansion. You know, there's a lightsaber and Darth Vader skins, but it's not Star Wars. It's just Star Wars thing in Destiny. Okay. Well, these conversations have been exhausted by now. I genuinely feel like it's impossible to have a good faith discussion about artistic language, skins, or visual direction in a game these days. If it's a PvP multiplayer game, that's one thing. A lot of people aren't happy about it, but Team Fortress 2 does not look the same way that it did when it first dropped. Rainbow Six Siege has brought up similar arguments of straying too far from its original visual themes. I only emphasize it when we talk about Destiny, because Destiny is primarily a PvE game. The power fantasy and the fun of the game comes from its immersive cinematic qualities. It is meant to be an immersive world you can lose yourself in, a place you can call a different world, separate unto itself. Destiny has PvP, but it's contextualized within its world to a certain degree. It's more than just a button you click, it's the Crucible, and Lord Shaxx directs you to harden yourself in the rigors of combat in a wholesomely supportive way. Everything in a PvE game should feel like an extension of the world, like an extension of the artistic direction the team is going in. Especially if it's an MMO-ish thing. Is Destiny an MMO? I don't really know. As of late, Bungie has faced a lot of criticism for appearing to walk away from that for profit. And while I understand that the final shape is done and history by now, I also think it proved a counter-narrative right, tragically. That the moment Bungie was done with their baby, they were ready to move on and diverted a lot of their attention, supposedly, to Marathon. And Bungie has never led with any of the PvE qualities about Marathon. It's always put the PvP front and center, whereas Arc Raiders has kind of done the opposite to great effect. Embark has created a captivating world where robotic, alien-like creatures skulk across the planet's surface in this post-apocalyptic, desert-like world. The machines you fight are terrifying in their own right, sometimes the size of small buildings with complex movesets and quirks involved with fighting them, like giant alien starfish monsters. It feels like how a PvE game should feel. The environment should feel like a compelling, exciting challenge to fight against. Marathon's bots, scattered throughout the environment, from what I've read, are an opponent that should not be underestimated, but they still just look like a variety of targets to kind of just put a solid spray into and move on. They feel more disposable compared to the powerful machines you come across in Arc Raiders. And Marathon has a whole litany of things to explore with the Alien 4 that are completely absent aside from some occasional bits and pieces in the marketing material. This is not rocket science. Gamers love compelling bad guys. We see this with Helldivers 2 getting a brand new breath of life with the introduction of the recent Alien Illuminate faction and the whole thing they did with the invasion of Super Earth. There were new additions to the forces of Super Earth. Helldivers got backup from these little Super Earth troopers. It's the little things, yeah, and in the grand scheme, you could make a case for it not being that big of a deal. But people love these little blueberries. They want to protect them like they wanted to protect the UNSC Marines in Halo. And that's just the Illuminate. New enemy types are added for the automatons and the Terminids too. Giant walking mechs and flying creatures. It feels like the devs are having fun making compelling enemies to fight, and that just doesn't seem to be the case with Marathon. Marathon has made absolutely no effort to show off the 4, and that just boggles my mind. Another aspect about Marathon that really threw me for a loop was the emphasis on making it into a hero game. For the life of me, I have absolutely no idea what they were thinking here. When I watched the short film cinematic, which was a great piece of fiction in its own right, I was under the impression the characters we were watching were personally customized shells. I was under the impression we could go anywhere from the human-looking punk rockers like Glitch to the more robotic soldiers like Locust. Instead, despite repeated attempts by Bungie to say otherwise, they gave us a hero shooter system. They don't want to call it that. I'm sure most people can assume why, because even Bungie themselves understand that such an idea isn't going to be popular here. Extraction shooters thrive off of their customization. The idea that over time you become stronger, more capable, better. Your gear, the way you present yourself, tells a story about you. These individual shells aren't bad designs, but it absolutely threw me for a loop when I found out that they were just locked presets with locked visuals and abilities to match. Just a very bizarre decision for a game of this nature. And one that I think stands in conflict with the design approach of an extraction shooter. That's ultimately what I get from Marathon. I see a lot of great ideas ruined by horrible execution or mediocre execution. I could be wrong about all this. Maybe by some miracle they really figure it out when they fire some people, they hire some people, they delay the game, or let it sit in the oven for a bit longer. No one really knows. Maybe Sony will make sure their investment doesn't end up being a complete waste of time. I imagine they certainly wouldn't want that to be the case. Do I believe it could very well end up still being a waste of time regardless? Of course I do. The sad part is I feel like all of this could have been avoided. And that's awful, but perhaps the worst part about it is that some vibes could have told you these things were bound to happen. Bungie's departure from Activision was supposed to be a freedom cry for the company. They were supposed to have a new opportunity to move on and spread their wings. Instead, their acquisition by Sony has been met with a lot of the same corporate cronyism characterized by their stint with Activision. Bungie wants to play poker, but they don't have the hand to be bluffing. There's absolutely no reason for them to keep things close to their chest, aside from the plagiarism scandal. I think they want to give the impression they have something else up their sleeve, but nobody's buying it. And for $40, I very well believe nobody will buy it. Right now, the situation is dire, and if the game isn't going to implode immediately on arrival, they're going to have to make a tough decision. Parts of Destiny 2 were outright deleted from the game world over the course of many years to make room for additional pieces of content. These decisions were always characterized by matters of practicality, matters of engineering, but a lot of people did not buy it then, and I don't think they're going to buy it now. The quest lines for old World of Warcraft content are still available in spades. What the heck is so unique about Destiny 2 that you feel it's okay to cordon off entire stories from new players? That's the calling card here, right? This rich world. The cool aliens, the breathtaking planet surfaces and skyboxes. It's supposed to be an exciting adventure. Somewhere along the way, it feels like Bungie lost their mojo. They lost their passion, their inner child. The final shape was a great send-off in many respects, but I don't think we'll ever get an FPS narrative experience of that kind of caliber from Bungie ever again, at least not for a long time. The company that made Halo is history. The company that made the original Marathon trilogy is ancient history. We had a great opportunity to take a cult classic and inject new life into it, to really ingratiate it into the breadth of the gaming space, sci-fi, and pop culture today. We were this close. We might not be that far away, but it still sucks to see Bungie miss the mark when we all know they had the capacity to hit it strong.